Hello, so here we are with 2.6 LRS AT4. So we'll say show the conclusion. Okay, can we make, and we look and we see, oh, it's a biconditional. Like, how do we get a biconditional? Well, probably we're going to use CB with the two conditionals, if R then P and if P then R. So we think probably box and cancel with DD, so we get P if and only if R from with CB from P if P then R, and if R then P. And again, this is not mysterious. I look at this, I think, how can I box and cancel it? Can I use CD? No, so it has to be DD. That means I have to get P if and only if R. And how do I know how do I get P if and only if R? Just go look at the inference rules. What is the inference rule that we use to get a biconditional? It's CB. And what does CB use? It uses if P then R and if R then P. So you just, what is the conclusion? How am I going to box and cancel it? How am I going to get that? Well, what kind of thing is it and what rule? And what are the premises of that rule? And there you go. So there's no assumption to be made because it's not a conditional. We're trying to show a biconditional. Okay, so let's bring in our premises. There's premise 1 and premise 2. There is no premise 3. So what can we do with 2? Well, we can apply BC to it. So let's say 2 BC. And we can do BCL and for left to right, and BCR for right to left, and the right. So L, PR, or Q, that's the left to right biconditional, and if Q then P, that's the right to left biconditional. So that's done with 2. Now let's look at 3. So we say BCL and BCR with 3. Okay, and we're done with our BCs. So 2 and 3 we've probably used up. 4, 5, 6, 7, well, those are all conditionals, and so we can do either MP or MT with them if we have the right things. So for MP with 4 we need Q, with 5 and 6 we need, with 4 we need P. For MP with 4 we need P. For MP with 5 and 6 we need Q. And for MP with 7 we need R, none of which we have. For MT with 4, 5, 6, 7 we need either negation Q, or negation P, or negation R, or negation Q. Again, none of which we have. So at this point, our derivation is stuck because we've used up lines 2 and 3, and we can't use lines 4 through 7. So the derivation is stuck, so we do a subderivation. So what is the question so first question is the derivation stuck? Yes. So do we do a subderivation? So now we need to ask, what should we do a subderivation of? Well, we want to do a subderivation of what will help complete the main derivation. And what will help complete the main derivation? Well, whatever will help us box and cancel the main show line. And what is that? If P then R, and if R then P. Because once we get if P then R and if R then P, we'll put them together with CB, which will give us P if and only if R, which will let us DD, and we're done. So what we want to get are if P then R and if R then P. So that's what we should do subderivations of, and we're going to do 2 of them. So first we're going to say show if P then R. So again, we'll make our assumption. Now let's look. Can we use P with our earlier lines? And we look up and we say, oh, there's line 4. Line 4 is a conditional whose antecedent is P. So we can do modus ponens with 9 and 4. We got Q. Okay, good. So now we want to ask, can we use Q? So we're going to look up again, just like we have in the past, and we say, well, where does Q show up? And Q shows up at 5 and 6. Okay, with 5, if we apply modus ponens with 5 and 10, we're going to get P back. That's useless. We already have P, so we can do that, but there's no good reason to. But what about 10 and 6? 10 is the antecedent of line 6, so we can do MP, and what do we get? We get R. Do we like R? We do like R because R is the consequent of the show line we're working on. Right, we're trying to show right now if P then R. We just got R, so we have CD. Good. Okay, now let's try to show. So we've done half of them. We've done this. Okay. Now, can we move the derivation forward? The derivation is still stuck. Right, we got a new conditional, and that's nice, but by itself that conditional won't really let us do anything. Now we need to get the other conditional. We need, once we have these two, right, once we have those two, we're going to say 8, 13, CB, and we're going to get P if and only if R, and that is our conclusion, and then we can box and cancel. So, let's see if we can do that. We're going to say, assume CD, that's our antecedent. What can we do with R? Well, we look back and notice on line 7 that we have a conditional whose antecedent is R. So we can say 14, 7, modus ponens, and we get Q, the consequent of line 7. Good. Can we use Q? Well, if we look, we see that Q occurs in the antecedent of 5 and in the antecedent of 6 again. So we can do modus ponens with either of them. Well, which one do we want to do? We could do both, but we don't need to. We only want to do one. We want to do modus ponens with 5, because if we do modus ponens with 5 and 15, then we'll get P. And why do we like P? Because P is the antecedent of line 13, and so we can say CD. So, right, we're just going to say if R then Q, if Q then P, so we go R, Q, P. And we get P, that's our consequent, and we're done with that subderivation. So now we will put these two together, just like I showed before. There's our conclusion. And so we can say 19 direct, or actually, I did that again, 18 direct derivation. And that's it, okay? So this is slightly more complicated because we have to do two separate subderivations in order to get the pieces that we need to build the conclusion, but it's the same idea. In the previous two derivations, we already had one of the pieces that we needed to build the conclusion, and we had to do a subderivation to get the other. In this one, we just did a subderivation of both pieces. So frequently, when the conclusion is a biconditional, you do subderivations of both of its conditional parts. You do a subderivation of one conditional, and then you do a subderivation of the other conditional, and then you apply CB, and then you're done. So that's 2.6 LRS 84. The only complication, again, is that you have to do two separate subderivations. But the reasoning that leads you to do those two separate subderivations is the reasoning I've been going through here again, which is, how do I get the conclusion? What subderivations are going to help me when I get stuck? And put those two pieces together, do a subderivation of what will help me get the conclusion, and when I get the conclusion. So that's how that works. If you have any questions, please let me know.